I used to think silence was peaceful. Now I know. Silence can scream. The desert had its own voice that night, a dry, aching hum that pressed against my ears. I remember sitting by the broken road, my skin sticky with sweat, my throat raw from crying. There was no phone signal, no passing cars, no footsteps coming back, just the whisper of wind scraping against my bones. "Alex?" I called, my voice barely a sound. "Liam?" Nothing, only the echo of my own name bouncing back from the canyon walls. Julia, Julia, Julia. Like a cruel joke. We were supposed to be driving to the coast. It was meant to be our reset. A weekend away from the noise, from the stress of wedding plans and city life. But one argument, one spark of pride, and suddenly I was standing alone, on the edge of nowhere, watching the dust trail of their car disappear into the orange horizon. They left me. Over a fight. It started small, about directions, of all things. I told Alex to turn left. He insisted right. Liam laughed from the back seat. Teasing him, I snapped. Alex snapped harder. The next thing I knew, the car stopped, the trunk slammed, and my bag landed on the ground beside me. "Cool off," Alex said. "We'll come back once you've calmed down." But they didn't. The sun burned out, the stars rose, and the only thing that came back was the cold. I waited. 1 hour, 2. Then dawn broke, and still nothing. Something inside me broke that morning. Not like glass, more like ice cracking underfoot, slow, quiet, final. I walked for hours, barefoot after my shoes tore against the rocks. I found a small gas station by noon. The man behind the counter spoke little English, but he gave me water and pointed toward the bus stop. He didn't ask questions. Maybe he saw it in my eyes. The kind of loss that doesn't need explaining. By the time I reached the next town, my phone had died, my heart had gone numb, and a single thought pulsed in my mind like a heartbeat. No one is coming back. That was the last day I waited for them. The desert didn't just leave me hungry for water. It left me hungry for answers, hungry for justice, hungry for the version of myself that wouldn't beg to be loved. They buried me in that heat. But they didn't know. Some things don't rot in the sun. Some things harden. They say love makes you blind. But in my case, it just made me quiet. Alex wasn't the kind of man who raised his voice, not at first. He was charming, deliberate, the kind of person who made you feel like he saw through the noise of the world and straight into your soul. When we met, he was managing an architectural project in Mexico City. I was a freelance photographer, documenting small towns and hidden faces. He told me once that I made ordinary things look sacred. I fell for him in fragments. A glance, a word, a laugh. By the time I realized I was drowning, it already felt like home. Liam came later, Alex's best friend since university, the easygoing type. He joked that Alex and I were like fire and blueprint. I thought it was funny then. Now it sounds like foreshadowing. The three of us spent that summer exploring the countryside. Small towns, coffee stands, forgotten roads that led nowhere. I'd take photos. Alex would plan his next project. Liam would tag along, spinning stories about their wild college days. Looking back, I remember the signs. The way Liam's jokes about jealous girlfriends always landed a little too heavy. The way Alex's smile faded when I asked about their business deals. The way they'd whisper in English when they thought I couldn't hear. But love makes you edit your memories. Crop out the shadows, brighten the flaws. Alex proposed in San Miguel de Allende, under a sky full of lanterns. He promised me 3 things: that he would never leave me, that he would always protect me, and that his best friend would become my brother. 3 promises. 1 lie. Because on that day in the desert, when they left me, those promises evaporated like mirages. The small fight that morning wasn't about directions, it was about control, about trust, about the way Alex had started calling my work a distraction, about how Liam had been spending more time at our place, dropping hints that I was too ambitious. It built up quietly. Then it exploded loudly. I remember the exact words, because words can carve scars deeper than knives. Alex shouted, "You always have to prove something, Julia. You can't just be." I snapped, "I have to prove myself because you treat me like a project and not a partner." Liam muttered from the back seat. "She's not wrong, man." Alex glared at him. "Stay out of this." And that's when I said it, the one thing I shouldn't have. "Maybe he knows you better than I ever will." The car stopped. The air went dead. And in that single second, love turned into pride. He got out, grabbed my bag, dropped it on the dirt road, and said, "Cool off, Julia. We'll come back once you stop acting like this." They drove away, and I stood there, surrounded by miles of sand and silence, too proud to run after them. That's the thing about pride. It burns hotter than pain, until all that's left is ash. 3 months later, I was no longer in Mexico. When the bus crossed the border out of Mexico, I didn't look back. Not because I was brave, but because I couldn't bear to see what I'd become. I told the border officer I was visiting a friend. That friend didn't exist. All I had was a camera, a backpack, and a hollowed-out version of myself. I drifted through hostels, small jobs, borrowed beds. I took photos of strangers to feel less invisible. I smiled for people who didn't know my story, and that in itself was a kind of healing. Pretending. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection in a cafe window and barely recognize her. The girl with messy hair, cracked lips, eyes like storms. She looked like she'd survived something. Maybe she had. For 3 months, I built walls around my silence. I didn't post online. I didn't call anyone. I wanted Alex to think I'd disappeared, like a ghost he'd never find. But ghosts don't stay buried forever. I found a job in a small photography studio in Montreal. The owner, an old French woman named Claudine, didn't ask for references. She just looked at my portfolio and said, "Your eyes see pain beautifully, that's rare." She gave me work. Then, slowly, purpose. Every portrait I captured felt like stitching myself back together. A mother holding her child. A man mourning his dog lovers, laughing under snow. I started to understand pain, when seen clearly, becomes art. At night, I'd dream of that road in Mexico. I'd see the car driving away, the dust swallowing me whole. But the dream started changing. The car still drove off, only this time, I didn't call after it. I just watched, and I smiled. It was subtle, at first, that shift. That revenge that doesn't come with fire, but with quiet evolution. Claudine once asked, "Do you still love whoever hurt you?" I laughed. "No, I outgrew him." She nodded. "That's worse for him." Winter came hard that year. Montreal snow has no mercy. It buries everything, even memory. And yet, under that frozen silence, I bloomed. I found new friends, new light, even a new name. Jules. Shorter, sharper, easier to sign on the corner of my photographs. But one night, as I was leaving the gallery where my first solo exhibit hung, I got an email. It was from an address I hadn't seen in months. Subject, "Please, Jules." It's me, Alex. The body of the message was short, desperate. "I've been looking for you for 3 months. Liam and I thought you were dead. Please tell me you're okay. I'm in Montreal for work. I need to see you." I stared at the screen for a long time. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. My pulse didn't race. It slowed, cold, steady, like the calm before a storm you've been waiting for. Because that's the thing about revenge. It doesn't always start with hatred. Sometimes it starts with a single sentence you never planned to send. And I didn't send one. Not yet. I wanted him to find me. Not because I hid, but because I had become someone he wouldn't recognize. The desert had left me hungry. Now Canada had made me patient. Snow has a way of silencing everything, even the sound of your own heart. That night, Montreal was a city painted in white, and I walked through it like a ghost who finally remembered her name. I hadn't replied to Alex's email, but I knew he'd come looking. People always return to the places where they lost their power. I saw him before he saw me, standing across the street from the cafe I used to visit after work. He looked smaller, thinner, his hair longer, unkempt, his coat too formal for the weather, like he hadn't learned how to live without someone dressing him right. He was holding his phone, scrolling, looking around every few seconds, waiting. When our eyes finally met, something inside me went perfectly still. He froze, too. Then he whispered my name, or something close to it. "Julia." I didn't move at first. I wanted to see what guilt looked like in real time. He crossed the street, nearly slipping on the ice, and stopped a few feet away. His breath came out in clouds. "I can't believe it's really you." I smiled, polite, distant. People say that when they see a ghost. He flinched. "You're not a ghost, you're... God, I thought you were dead. Jules, Julia, whatever name you go by now, I need you to know I didn't mean to leave me in the middle of a desert?" I interrupted softly. "That's usually not something you do by accident." His mouth opened, closed. "Please, let me explain." I gestured toward the cafe behind him. "Then let's go inside. No one freezes to death tonight, not even you." The warmth hit us as we stepped in. The scent of roasted coffee and cinnamon, the low hum of jazz, the chatter of people who had no idea they were sitting inside a story that began with betrayal. We sat by the window. He stared at me like he was trying to memorize a stranger. And maybe he was. "You look different," he said finally. "I am." He ran his hands through his hair. "I went back for you, Julia. I swear, we both did. But you were gone. We searched the road, the town, even called the police. They said there was no report, no trace." I tilted my head. "Maybe because I didn't want to be found." He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "Why? Why disappear? We could have... Don't finish that sentence," I said. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "We could have what, Alex? Pretended it didn't happen? Got married like nothing was broken? You left me. You and your friend over a fight." He winced. "Liam, that day was he..." I leaned forward. "Go on. Say it. He what?" His jaw clenched. "He told me you and he were close, that you'd been lying to me. He said you wanted him more than me." The air between us turned sharp. I didn't speak for a long time. Then I laughed. Not loudly, not cruelly, just enough to make him look ashamed. "Liam said that?" I whispered. "And you believed him?" I was angry, confused. "He showed me a message." I cut in, my words like slow knives. "That he wrote himself, probably. You didn't even ask me. You didn't even look at me. You dropped me on a road and drove away. I went back, he said again, desperate. You have to believe me. Believe you? I leaned back, arms crossed. You believed him, a man who envied everything we had. You threw away your fiancé based on his jealousy. That's not love, Alex, that's cowardice. He covered his face. I know I was wrong. Liam, he's gone now. We don't talk. He told me months later he lied. I confronted him. He laughed, said he wanted to see what I'd do. And what did you do? Alex's voice cracked. I punched him. Then I drank for a week straight. Ah, I said softly. So you suffered. Good for you. He looked up, eyes glossy. You're different. Colder. I learned from the best, I said. We sat in silence. Snow pressed against the window like frost-bitten hands. He broke first. Julia, I never stopped loving you. I smiled faintly. That's the tragedy, isn't it? Love doesn't stop us from doing cruel things. It just makes us justify them. He reached across the table, his hand trembling. Please, let me make it right. I stared at his hand, pale, shaking, familiar. And for a brief second, the part of me that once wanted him almost reached back, almost. But mercy wasn't part of my rebirth. I stood slowly. You can't make right what you abandoned. Then tell me how to atone, he said. Tell me what to do. I met his eyes, steady. Live with what you did. That's punishment enough. I started walking toward the door. He followed me out into the snow. Julia, don't walk away again, please. The streetlights cast halos around us. Snow drifted between every word like falling ash. You walked away first, I said. He grabbed my wrist, desperate. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I turned slowly, meeting his eyes. A mistake is spilling coffee. What you did was a decision. He let go, his voice breaking. I loved you. I believe you, I said. But love means nothing without loyalty. He stared at me, speechless. You know what I realized, Alex, I whispered. I didn't lose you in the desert. I lost you long before that, the moment you let doubt speak louder than I did. For a moment, I saw tears freeze on his lashes. Then I stepped back, the snow swallowing my footprints one by one. As I turned away, I said, You left me to die under the sun. I learned to live under the ice. You'll never survive what I became. And I walked, slow, silent, certain. The wind howled behind me, like applause. That night I didn't cry. I didn't even shake. I went home, poured a glass of wine, and watched the snow fall outside my window. For the first time in a long time, I felt weightless. Not because I'd forgiven him, but because I no longer needed to. Snow has no mercy, and neither did I. Some people burn bridges. I learned how to build new ones, with fire. After that night, Alex faded into the background of Montreal, like a stain that refused to wash away, but no longer mattered. I didn't block him. I didn't need to. Silence is louder when it's intentional. For weeks, I threw myself into work. My photography took a turn, darker, more raw, more honest. The series I submitted to the gallery that spring was titled Resurrection. Every piece told a story of loss, of silence, of rebirth. A woman standing alone in an empty desert road, a pair of footprints disappearing into snow, a flame reflected in a cracked mirror. People whispered that my work carried pain, but also power. They weren't wrong. At the exhibit's opening night, the gallery was full. Lights dimmed low, voices hushed. Claudine walked beside me, beaming like a proud mother. You've turned your ghosts into gold, she whispered. I smiled. Gold burns too. And then, through the crowd, I saw him. Alex. He looked like someone who'd been living in yesterday. His hair trimmed, his suit pressed, but his eyes, they were the same, tired, regretful, lost. He didn't come up right away. He wandered through the gallery first, studying each photo like they were confession notes addressed to him. Maybe they were. When he finally reached me, I didn't flinch. I met his gaze the way the moon meets the tide, distant, inevitable. Julia, he said softly, they're incredible. Thank you, he hesitated. You've changed. I smiled faintly. You keep saying that as if change is a crime. He shook his head. No, it's just, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone rise like this. I tilted my head. Maybe you never looked long enough. He swallowed. You're famous now. They're talking about your work everywhere. There's a feature about you in Art and Vision. So I've heard. He took a deep breath. Do you ever think about coming back to Mexico, to us? I almost laughed. Back, you mean to the place you buried me? He looked down. I deserve that. Yes, you do. We stood there surrounded by people who applauded art, unaware they were watching the quiet theater of revenge. I wish I could undo it, he whispered. I looked at him. The man who once held my dreams like fragile glass, now holding nothing but guilt. You can't undo the past, Alex, I said gently. You can only live with its echo. He blinked hard as if fighting tears. You really don't feel anything anymore, do you? Feel? I thought for a moment. I feel gratitude. For what? For the day you left me. Because if you hadn't, I'd still be small enough to fit inside your world. He exhaled sharply. Like my words took the last air out of him, Claudine approached then, smiling at me. The press wants a photo, ma chère artiste. I turned to her, my tone warm, my heart calm. Of course. Before I walked away, I glanced back at Alex. He stood still, swallowed by the glow of the gallery lights. A man watching the future he forfeited. That was my revenge. Not loud, not cruel, just final. Later that night, Claudine and I walked home, under the pale glow of streetlights. She carried the last glass of champagne from the gallery, humming softly. You looked beautiful up there, she said, like you belonged to the light. I think I finally do, I said. She nodded. And him belongs to his own shadows. She smiled. Then it's done. Yes, I whispered. It's done. I looked up at the sky, the same stars that once watched me from the desert. Only now they didn't feel cold or distant, they felt earned. Because revenge isn't always about ruining someone else's life. Sometimes it's about rebuilding your own until theirs looks empty, in comparison. They left me in the sand to die. I walked through snow to rise, and somewhere between the two, the girl they buried became fire. They say time heals all wounds. They're wrong. Time doesn't heal. It reshapes. It takes the jagged edges of your past and smooths them into something you can hold without bleeding. Months passed after the gallery exhibit. My name began to circle quietly in art circles. Not fame exactly, but respect. The kind that doesn't shout, the kind that stays. I moved into a small apartment above a bookstore, the kind that smells like dust and stories. I'd spend mornings photographing the sunrise over the St. Lawrence River, evenings sipping tea as snow blanketed the world outside my window. Sometimes I'd think about Alex. Not with longing, not even with anger, just with a strange, detached curiosity. The way you remember an old dream that once felt real. He tried writing once, a message on social media, months after the exhibit. "I hope you're happy. You deserve it." I didn't reply. Because I was happiness, I'd learned, doesn't come from closure. It comes from reclaiming the parts of you that someone tried to erase. One afternoon, I received a letter at the studio. Handwritten, no return address. The handwriting was familiar. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity still lives in me even after everything. "Julia, I went back to the road where I left you. It hasn't changed. The same dust, the same silence. I sat there for hours waiting, not for you, but for forgiveness. It never came. I hope you're free now. Alex." I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. Then I went out for a walk. The city was quiet, wrapped in late spring. The ice had melted. The world smelled like rain and beginnings. For the first time since that day in the desert, I felt light. Not because the past was gone, but because it no longer weighed anything. I paused by a bridge, watching the water move below. Slow, relentless. And I realized something. He did find me, but not in the way he thought. When Alex found me, I wasn't the woman he left behind. I wasn't his fiancée. I wasn't his victim. I was the storm that followed, the echo that outlived his silence, the consequence he could never undo. He found me in every headline that carried my name. He found me in every photograph that mirrored his regret. He found me every time he closed his eyes and saw snow instead of sand. That's the cruel mercy of regret. It keeps you company long after the person you wronged has moved on. As for me, I don't live in vengeance anymore. I live in creation. I live in peace. And sometimes when I close my eyes, I see that old desert, the roads stretching endlessly, the sky painted gold. But now, I'm not standing there waiting. I'm walking, one step after another, into the light. Because forgiveness is overrated. But freedom is divine. If Julia's story moved you, if you've ever been left, broken, or underestimated, remember this. Strength isn't about revenge. It's about becoming someone they can never hurt again. Watch more powerful stories of resilience, revenge, and redemption. Subscribe, like, and share to keep her fire burning. Because every woman who rises from betrayal deserves to be heard.